Dr. J. We're here because in life, shift happens. We are going along, things seem to be flowing, and then suddenly, bam, we're knocked off course, right? And so this channel is dedicated to helping you navigate change and uncertainty in a way that can be as joy-filled as possible in the difficult moments. This channel was actually inspired by a breast cancer diagnosis and layoff that happened all within 3 days, right before my birthday at the end of the year as the holiday season approached. So, as I like to say, shift happens. It definitely did in my life, and I know there's shift happening all over the world, and I hope that this reaches someone who needs to hear it. As we prepare for New Year's, tomorrow is New Year's Eve, and I'm so excited to reflect. I love this time of year, and I'm not going to let cancer or joblessness steal my joy. No way, Jose. We are here to build brilliance. That much I am clear about. So one of the things that I wanted to discuss was a year in review, looking back, how did shift happen this year in my life? So I reflected, and there's 3 major shifts that I thought were very significant and are trajectory changers. So at the end of the year, last year around this same time, we were house sitting. My daughter loves horses, which is how this city girl, who was beach girl gone city, ended up in the country. So we were house sitting, my daughter was riding horses, and I was walking along this path. I had to escape the manure and hard work. So I would drop her off and then go for my little jaunts around the barn. And I found this little neighborhood that was so beautiful. It was adjacent to a lake in the foothills of the mountains, and I couldn't figure out how to find it. Everywhere I drove, it was like there weren't roads in. And so finally, I, after lots of navigating, discovered there was a country club nearby, and that allowed me to GPS locate this particular community. Get into the country club, zigzag through the streets, had to kind of go through a little bit of a construction entrance into the neighborhood, and found this beautiful community. And then I saw the price tag and I thought, oh dear heavens, there's no way I could afford it. But you know how it is. You get that little itch inside and you've got to go and see what's possible. So I went into the sales office, and as I looked at that $1.7 million price tag, I just pretended with all the confidence I could muster that I could afford this. And when she dropped that price tag, I just said to myself, don't look shocked. And so I kept my face straight. I acted like I could afford that place. And I decided I was going to figure out how I could afford that place. I went through and navigated my finances. I'm a big time saver and savvy spender. I try to teach that to my daughter, to be a smart and savvy shopper, which means you don't buy much. The things that we buy don't actually bring us joy. It's just temporary. So I've focused on that lesson and have really focused on building wealth and acquiring wealth for my family. So I learned how to manage that big mortgage, got myself into the bidding war and won. I was absolutely shocked when that happened. So this was going to be the big shift of 2022, was making this country club dream our reality. I also knew, given the price of that home, that we wouldn't be able to do a whole lot of horseback riding at first, but I am a pressure player and I love performance pressure. High performers use a tool and a strategy called raise performance necessity. So for me, I was like, this is gonna do it. I had done it before at a smaller scale with another house and real estate property. And that was right at the edge of my comfort zone. And that ended up yielding me over $500,000 in earnings of that property. So I thought, all right, let's play. It's major league time. So I get this going. I win the bidding war. Interest rates are rising. I'm starting to freak out a little bit. I go to bat with my boss for an increase in pay. I start working on navigating how to be better able to manage the uncertainty that was coming. I end up literally meeting one broker after another and learning all about bank loans and lending. And turns out when one bank says no, that doesn't mean it's the end of your journey. No is just the first 2 letters of the words not yet. So that was a powerful shift, learning that financial strategy. Then the builder destroys the foundation. Again, shift happens. I had to figure out, how am I going to get myself out of this mess? Because per the real estate contract, I was stuck. And I could see these foundation walls that were cracking top to bottom. honeycombing on every structural beam pocket, 1 3/4 inch bowing in displacement of the walls from the, what's that called? Backfill of the foundation. I learned all about concrete, and then I quickly forgot all about concrete. So that was shift 1. And then we had the opportunity to buy my daughter's favorite horse for 1/3 the price. And I thought, okay, I see you working, God. Maybe this whole dream could come true. And maybe this year was an invitation to quit playing small. So amidst that chaos and crisis came a bigger dream. So whatever chaos and crisis you might feel you're facing, for me right now, it's joblessness and cancer. I want you to recognize that is just the beginning of something more amazing. I wouldn't be standing here in this gorgeous spot on our grilling deck if I hadn't embraced that and hadn't said, okay, I'm going to trust in my ability to figure things out. I want you to write those words down, put them on a sticky note, and plaster them somewhere you'll see them. For me, whenever I first took some big moves, I had to put them on my desk, I put them on my bathroom mirror, and I put them on my refrigerator, because those were the areas I saw it most often. And I wrote the words, I trust in my ability to figure things out. You figured out every day so far, my friend. You know what that makes you? Undefeated, baby. Woo woo! I'm a baseball girl, so you're gonna get lots of sports analogies in this channel. I also had to trade my business suit for jeans and beautiful black blouses as I entered the tech world. And now that I'm running my own business, I get to wear ball caps and sweatshirts, which is my favorite attire, coupled with yoga pants, of course. Those are my faves. So we had the opportunity to buy this big horse. Not a big horse, sorry. This big property, and put a horse in the yard. And that was a really big shift. If God had showed me this and said, hey, you could have this, I would have thought, no way, Jose. I'm not actually a fan of animals and dirt, just so you know. My daughter loves horses, and thanks to true love, I was able to make that adjustment in my life and live here amidst animals and dirt. She's giggling filming this, which is because she knows it's true. It's so true. I love neat, orderly, organized places, and there ain't nothing neat, orderly, and organized about the country or really about life. So with that, that was shift 1. Now we go to shift 2. This one's a big one, and one that's kind of hard for me to talk about because I haven't figured it all out, and I'm a scholarly research type. I like to not go live until I'm an expert. But my daughter says, no one wants you to be perfect. People don't like that. So I'm trusting in this journey and leaning in, which feels like I'm ready to fly off the edge of a cliff, but I'm going to be all right. I can trust in my ability to figure things out. So this big shift, I'm going to call the return to God shift. So the first shift was city to country club life to, oh, we ended up in the country. That was shift 1. Shift 2 is this return to God. So I've always loved God. I've always loved abundance and this universe and the magnificence and brilliance within people. However, I had turned away from church and religion because I didn't like how individuals associated with the church and religion behaved. I didn't like how they treated the LGBTQ plus community and people that I really loved and held near and dear to my heart. And so I turned my back on that too. And I thought, I'm going to worship God on my own, which really didn't end up being a whole lot of worship, to be honest. It looked a lot like yoga and meditation, and I would get easily discouraged. And this particular day, a friend of mine had reached out. She was really struggling, and she was someone who I admired and thought the world of. And so the fact that she called me when she was down in the dumps and said, hey, I need a little joy in my life, I thought, I'm honored. And she was like, would you be willing to go on a hike or she said, would you be willing to get together? And at that time, it was early in the year, and I had just given up alcohol, and I was trying my darndest to be healthy. And so I thought, could we please not do brunch or like happy hour? Let's do a hike, because that would be better. So I'm watching my daughter's arms get tired filming this. We got to get this figured out, but we'll keep rolling because we're halfway through this already.
You're going to take another 10 minutes?
So it's cold out here. She's shaking in her boots, but we're going to make it. We're going to make it. It's how things go, right? This is a shift that's happening in our lives and in our world, and we've got to respond appropriately. So anyhow, she reaches out, and I had asked, would you mind if we go on a hike? because I'm really trying to stay healthy and make good choices that make me feel vibrant and not turn to the path of temptation that always gets me. And that's unhealthy foods, emotional eating. Turns out I eat with every emotion, whether it's joy and happiness or pain and sorrow, everything in between. I love to eat. So I said I'd really prefer if we could do something that's really healthy. And then she says, okay, great, I would love to hike. And I told her, you pick the place, I'll be there. And she picks this place that's really far away. Well, as a single mom, I've got to take care of my kid, and I have never really left her home before for a long period of time alone. And so I said, well, do you think we could go somewhere closer? Because that'll be 40 minutes each way, and I've got my daughter. And I didn't really want to tell her that because we knew each other professionally. And I was worried about how she'd see me as a single mom and that she'd think that maybe I couldn't do my job or I was inadequate or unable to be successful because I was a single mom. Again, another shift that happened. She actually loved that about me. She was like, I love that. I think single moms are some of the hardest working people that I've ever met. And I said, you're probably right on with that, because becoming a single mom made me start to manage the minutes. It literally became my hashtag, manage the minutes. You've got to stop. So I was managing the minutes and working so hard. So she says, yeah, bring your daughter. That'll be fun. So we get everybody packed up, me, her, my daughter, the dog, and we go off to hike. And after that hike, I said, I don't want you doing what I usually do, which is lay in bed, feeling discouraged, feeling not good enough, feeling all that self-doubt and self-criticism. I want to be the reason you get out of bed tomorrow. So how about we go to coffee first thing in the morning, give you a good reason to shower, get up and go. And she said, oh, I wish I could, but I'm going to church. So that night, my daughter and I are laying in bed doing our snuggle up gratitude prayers. And she says, Mommy, how come we don't go to church? And I was like, oh, honey, you don't want to go to church. Church is filled with judgmental people who aren't as loving and kind as what they preach. And she had said, I want to go to church. And so I thought, all right, I'll surrender. So that was another shift happened. And we go to this church. We meet the most amazing team of people. Truly people who I still text the pastor and his wife, even though we were going to church. I said, let's go by our country club home and start making friends in our new neighborhood. So that church isn't nearby anymore, but they are near and dear to our hearts, and we're a big part of this journey. And the more I went to church, the more I was reminded of the power of abundance that I believe so wholeheartedly in is actually in the Bible. My love of high performance, of leadership and leading your lifestyle was actually in Scripture. And so that piqued my curiosity, and I was really excited to learn that this wasn't quite as all about condemnation. Oops, Siri doesn't even know how to respond to that. So it wasn't about condemnation and brokenness. It was about authenticity and genuine living and how much love there is. And I thought, you're speaking my language. So that was a big shift. Then the third shift came right when I thought we'd settled into our new house. I thought, okay, things are going well. I live amongst some of the most beautiful human beings I've ever met in my life. I felt really blessed. I had great neighbors in the city, in all three of the properties that I've lived in downtown Denver. And here, though, there's a different sense of abundance and peace that people live by. There's not that crazy chaos that drives the day, and they're very relaxed and chill and willing to give you their time, willing to share resources and peace and love and compassion and all these things that feel really good in my heart. Shift 3 happened November 29th. A little before that, I got results that my annual mammogram hadn't come back normal, and they wanted to see me for one. And truth be told, I put it off because I thought, I called my mom, who is like the expert in the family. She's a cardiologist and real rock star when it comes to medicine. And she said, we all have fatty breasts. They run in our family, and grandma had the same thing. I had the same thing. So I called and found out the test was going to be $900. And I thought, I'm paying $900 for that. I'm not paying $900 to be told you got fatty boobs. No, thank you. I know that. So I decided to prolong that. However, being in this beautiful countryside, I had a fall from the horse, dislocated my hip, got a concussion, had met my deductible. Again, shift happens, right? That was a really negative, difficult event, yet it led to beauty in the fact that I now had met my deductible and could get this expensive exam for $147. So I'm a bargain shopper, baby. Remember that smart, savvy spender? I was like, oh yeah, this is a good savings. I mean, almost, 80 something percent off. So I basically go and get the exam thinking it's going to be nothing. Well, it turns out they wanted to do an in-depth mammogram and ultrasound, and that led to the discovery of breast cancer. Well, led to the need for a biopsy. I get home from that surgery. I was up all night worried about this giant needle, 14 gauge needle they're going to stick in. It prongs out like a drywall anchor, pulls your tissue. So I was having all these big nightmares about it. It turns out it wasn't quite as bad as what I thought it was going to be. And long story short, I ended up coming home from that biopsy surgery a little traumatized, very emotional, and got on a call to learn that I was being laid off. 2 days later, the results of that biopsy came in, and I learned that I had breast cancer. And so this is shift number 3. I don't know how the rest of this story plays out, but I can say this. A few lessons I've learned. One, it should be in a note that you have written right now. I trust in my ability to figure things out. So when I'm feeling down and discouraged, I know that I've figured out everything so far, and I have to trust that I will figure this out too. The other thing I'm learning big time, I mean giant big time, is that people are what's carrying me through right now. That as times get really tough and I feel discouraged and I'm scared to death and I'm like wondering, God, did you give me all this to take it away? Am I going to lose my home, be buried in drowning in doctor's appointments and medical debt? And there's a lot of fears that play in my head, and I have to monitor those and pay close attention to them, and then say, I am not going to choose to let whatever. Christians would say that's the devil at work. I would say that is, we've got kind of that negativity bias that, as psychologists call it, we're wired for negativity. So that's the go back to playing small, play it safe. That's survival. And so instead of that, I'm choosing abundance. I have figured everything out so far. I will figure this out. I know that in my heart, I can feel this leading to something big. And I don't know what it is, but I'm going to lean into that. And I hope to be creating that with you. So a few thoughts that I want you to think about how these apply to your life. I thought about of these 3 big shifts, right? From the city to country club to the country. That was shift 1. Shift 2, returning to God. Shift 3, layoff and breast cancer. Whatever your shifts are that are happening in your life right now, I want you to remember these things. High performers trust in their ability to figure things out. You may not think of yourself as a high performer, but I want you to shift. You are a high performer. You're watching this video, you made it this far, you obviously care about performance. So I want you to write that down. I trust in my ability to figure things out. You've figured out a lot so far. The best, this one is my favorite. The best is never behind us. The past simply prepared us for right now and sets the stage for an amazing future. I opened the first line of my dissertation with the John Lennon quote, "You may say I'm a dreamer, but I'm not the only one." I love dreaming big and pursuing big dreams, and most importantly, executing to make them happen. I think how we get there matters a lot. So this was something that came up in a sermon that someone shared with me when I was recovering from my concussion, and I had to listen to a podcast because I couldn't be on screens and reading. And it said, God will never take something from you and give you something inferior in exchange. So if God took something you liked, he is getting ready to give you something you love. I really liked my job. I really liked my breasts. I really like this country life that we're living. And so I want to trust in the fact that God wouldn't take those things from me. He's not going to take my health. He's not going to take my ability to provide for my daughter and myself. He's not going to take all that we've worked for. And so that's a harder one for me to embrace, but I'm learning. And that's all that I ask of you, is just lean in and learn. I hope this meant something to you, or this reaches you in some way. I know in my heart that I'm meant to do this, even though it's really uncomfortable for me. And so I invite you to like and subscribe. I've also got the Life Design Lab. If 2023 is a year that you feel ready to claim something big and you want my framework for how I've made dreams come true over my life. I built all of the wealth that I have in the last 7 years. And I captured all of that. And I didn't want it to be a program that's 20,000 hours of video for you. If you're like me, you don't have 20,000 hours to watch. You don't have time for a dozen videos and a million modules that you have. Ugh, my daughter keeps messaging me and it totally distracts me. That you have time. I know that time is precious and limited. Sorry, let me get regroup. Time is our most precious asset. We don't get it back. And so I created this into 8 modules that are no longer than 40 minutes each. I consolidated decades of research on high performance into 6 modules. And so I invite you to check out the Life Design Lab. If you go to drj.com/Life Design Lab, you'll get a little better overview than I was able to provide, a little distracted here. Sending you loads of love, my friends. Like and subscribe. Let's do 2023 together in community.